Good morning, 8th grade mathematicians, and welcome to virtual math class. Today we're going to be talking about solving one-step equations. And our objective for today is that students will be able to understand how to solve a one-step equation. This should be a review from 6th and 7th grade, but it's important that we understand this so that we can build upon it in the future lessons. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to divide your equation in half at the equal sign. And whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other side. So if you have an equation, I'll just say 3x equals 15. Every time, I want you to divide that right in half right where your equal sign is. And then we'll work on how to solve it. So let's talk about our terminology or our vocabulary that we need to know for this unit. So you're going to hear me say the inverse operation a lot. So essentially, inverse means opposite. So to solve an equation, you use the inverse operation. So if we think about that, the inverse of multiplication would be division, because multiplication and division are opposites. Addition and subtraction, those would be inverse because they're opposite. Another vocabulary term that you need to know is variable. So a variable represents the unknown, and it's usually a letter or a symbol. In this case, almost every time it's going to be a letter. The most common letter that you'll see is X. Even in that last example, whenever I said 3x equals 15 or whatever it was, X would be my variable because it represents the unknown. Whenever I solve for X, that's whenever I'm figuring out what X is. So it's no longer unknown after I solve. So in terms of our inverse operations, when you see addition, do subtraction. When you see subtraction, do addition. So addition and subtraction are inverse operations. When you see multiplication, and multiplication is when you would see a number and a letter together. So if you see 3x, 7z, 9p, any of those, that indicates multiplication. If you see a number and a letter directly together, that indicates multiplication. So when you see multiplication, do division. And lastly, when you see division or a fraction, so if you see like x over 8, that's a fraction, and that's the same thing as division, okay? So whenever you see a fraction or division, you're going to do multiplication. So each of these would be inverse operations of each other. So now we are told to solve x plus 4 equals 12. So I'm going to start by rewriting this. So I have x plus 4 equals 12. And I said that we need to divide it in half at the equal sign. So now I look on the side with the variable. On the side with the variable, which would be this side right here, I have x plus 4. So what do I see? I see addition. So I need to do the inverse operation, or the opposite. And what's the opposite of addition? Subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides of my equation, okay? So now I have a plus 4 and a minus 4. I have plus 4, minus 4. Those cancel each other out. So what am I left with on this side with my variable? I'm just left with x. So now I have x, I bring down my equal sign, and then on this side of my equation, I have 12 minus 4. What is 12 minus 4? 8. So now if I plug that back in, if I plug 8 in for x, does 8 plus 4 equals 12? Yes, it does. So that's a way that you can check yourself. Now on this one, I have x minus 9 equals 15. So I'm going to start by dividing it in half at my equal sign. Now I look on my side with my variable, which is right here. I need to get rid of whatever else is on the same side as my variable, because I have to figure out what x is. So I see subtraction. So I'm going to do addition. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Well, a -9 and a +9 cancel each other out. So on this side, all I'm left with is x. And I have x, I bring down my equal sign. And what is 15 plus 9? 15 plus 9 is 24. So now if I plug that back in, does 24 minus 9 equal 15? Yes, it does. So that's how I can check myself. So on this one, I have 7x equals 63. Now, I divided at my equal sign. So what operation is happening between 7 and x? That's multiplication, because like I said, whenever you see a number and a letter together, that means multiplication. So what is the inverse operation of multiplication? Division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 7. So if I have 7 divided by 7, what is that? That's 1, right? So on this side, all I have left is x, because I would have this would become 1 times x, and 1 times anything is just anything. So I have x, I bring down my equal sign, and what is 63 divided by 7? That's 9. So now, if I plug that back in, if I do 7 times 9, does that equal 63? Yes, it does. So that's, again, how you check yourself. And on this one, I have x divided by 4, x over 4 equals 6. A lot of times this will be written as that fraction, like I said. So x over 4 equals 6. I divide it in half. Now, x over 4, that's a fraction, which indicates division. So I'm going to start by multiplying both sides by 4. I'm just going to put parentheses. That way I know that I'm multiplying. So if I have 4 divided by 4, because I would have 4x divided by 4 is essentially what this is. So that cancels each other out over here, because that's going to equal 1. So I have x equals, and what is 6 times 4? 24. So now if I plug 24 in for x, I would have 24 over 4 equal 6. So does 24 divided by 4 equal 6? Yes, it does. So again, that's just another way that you can check yourself. Now this one, I have x plus -5 equals 12. I put my line down my equal sign. So now, what happens if I'm adding a negative? That's essentially just subtracting. So I could rewrite this as x minus 5 equals 12. So now, what operation do I see? I see subtraction, so it's the inverse operation, addition. So I'm going to add 5 on both sides. Now, -5 plus 5 cancels each other out. So I have x equals, what is 12 plus 5? 17. So now if I plug that in, is 17 plus -5, does that equal 12? Yes, it does. So that's, again, just check yourself. Always, always just check yourself. And our last example, I have -9x equals 72. So again, I draw my line down my equal sign. So this time I have a -9x. What operation is happening here? Multiplication. So the inverse operation is going to be division. And now, since I have a -9, I'm going to divide both sides by -9. So a -9 divided by -9, well, that's just 1. So that cancels each other out. So then I'm just left with x. So I have x equals, what is 72 divided by -9? Well, I know that 72 divided by 9 equals 8. But 72 divided by -9, that just means that my 8's going to be negative. So now, I have -9 times -8 equals 72. So it is -9 times -8 equals 72. Yes, it does, because remember that a negative times a negative equals a positive. So it checks out.